Sir, we just need a hug. The amber sunset bathed Newport, Oregon in a golden haze, the briny tang of the fish market cutting through the sea's restless hum. Grace Miller, blonde hair tied with a frayed ribbon, wrestled a rusted cart outside a grocery store, its squeaking wheel rattling a pile of scavenged cans. 6-year-old Lily, clutching a worn stuffed dog, fixed her blue eyes on passersby. Liam Hayes, a drifter with calloused hands and a heart scarred by a Seattle fire that stole his wife, Anna, and daughter Ellie, paused. He roamed, fixing strangers' lives to flee his own. Cart's broken? He asked. Grace nodded. Wheels loose. He offered a crumpled $20. Fix it. Lily's voice, soft but firm, stopped him. We don't need money, just a hug. Her gaze, like Ellie's, pinned him to the windswept sidewalk. Will a hug mend their broken worlds? Can one moment spark redemption? Share this story, subscribe for more, and tell us, where and when are you reading? What's your guess for their journey? Lily's small arms lingered around Liam's neck, her warmth a quiet shock against the chill of his grief. He stood slowly, the crumpled $20 still in his hand, his eyes locked on hers, blue, piercing like Ellie's when she'd begged for one last bedtime story. Grace's faint smile held a flicker of gratitude, but her hands gripped the cart's handle, knuckles white, as if anchoring herself against the world. The fish market's clamor faded into a low hum, the air thick with salt and unspoken stories. Liam cleared his throat. Let me fix that wheel, he said, kneeling by the cart. His fingers, rough from years of carpentry, traced the rusted axle. Got a wrench in my van. Grace hesitated, her voice soft. You don't have to. We've managed. It's no trouble, he replied, already heading to his battered van parked across the street. The door creaked as he pulled out a toolbox, its contents clinking like a reminder of the life he'd left behind. 3 years ago, he'd been a Seattle craftsman, building custom homes, his laughter filling rooms with Anna and Ellie. Now he fixed broken things for strangers, each repair a penance for the night he couldn't save them. Back at the cart, he worked in silence, tightening bolts, the squeak of the wheel fading with each turn. Lily watched, her stuffed dog dangling from one hand. You're good at fixing, she said, tilting her head. Do you fix hearts too? Liam's wrench paused mid-turn, his chest tightening. Not sure I'm any good at that, he said, forcing a half-smile. Her question cut deeper than she could know, stirring memories of Ellie's drawings taped to his workshop wall, her tiny voice asking, Daddy, can you fix my doll's arm? He'd always said yes, but some things couldn't be mended. Grace crouched beside Lily, brushing a strand of hair from her daughter's face. Lily, don't bother the man. But her eyes met Liam's, searching, as if she saw the shadow behind his smile. Thank you, she said. Most people just walk by. Liam nodded, standing. Wheel's solid now. Should hold. He tucked the $20 into his pocket, the weight of Lily's hug heavier than the bill. You two take care. As he turned to leave, Grace's voice stopped him. We're at the Anchor Motel, room 12. If you're around. Her words were tentative, an invitation wrapped in caution. Liam glanced back, seeing not just a tired mother, but a woman fighting to keep her daughter's world from crumbling. I might be, he said, and walked to his van, the sea's restless pulse echoing in his ears. That night, Liam parked on a bluff overlooking Yaquina Bay, the horizon swallowed by dusk. Inside his van, a single photo glowed under a dim lantern. Anna and Ellie, laughing on a pier, their blonde hair catching the sun. He traced Ellie's face, her smile frozen at 5 years old. The fire had come without warning, a faulty wire sparking while he was at a late job. He'd run through smoke, screams ringing, but the flames had won. He sold his shop, his life, and drifted, building shelves for shelters, fixing fences for the needy, chasing absolution in every nail. Lily's hug clung to him, a warmth he hadn't felt since Ellie. He didn't sleep, the van's walls closing in, her words, "Do you fix hearts too?" looping in his mind. By dawn, he was back in Newport, drawn to the Anchor Motel. The faded sign flickered, and the parking lot smelled of seaweed and motor oil. Room 12's door was ajar, Grace sorting cans inside while Lily colored on the floor, humming a tune. "Morning," Liam called, knocking lightly. Grace looked up, startled, then softened. "Didn't expect you back." "Thought I'd check the cart," he lied, holding up a small knit blanket from a thrift shop. "For Lily. Nights are cold here." Lily's eyes lit up. She ran over, clutching the blanket. "It's for Doggy," she said, wrapping it around her stuffed toy. "Thank you, Mr. Fixer." She handed him a crumpled drawing, 3 stick figures under a starry sky. "That's you, me, and Mama." Liam's throat tightened. "It's beautiful," he managed, tucking it into his jacket. Grace watched, her hands pausing. "You're kind," she said. "Not many are." Before he could reply, a sharp knock interrupted. A man in a greasy jacket stood at the door, his voice gruff. "Grace, rent's due tomorrow. $200 or you're out. No excuses." Grace's face paled. "I'll get it, Mr. Tate. Just need a day." Tate snorted. "Heard that before." He left, the door slamming shut. Liam's jaw clenched. "Trouble?" Grace sighed, rubbing her temples. "Always is. I was a librarian once. Read to kids, made them smile. Then Lily's dad left, and the library cut my job. Now it's cans and this motel. I can't lose this place, not for her." Liam glanced at Lily, still coloring, oblivious. "I'll help," he said, the words slipping out before he could stop them. "Got some tools. Maybe I can fix something around here. Trade for time with Tate." Grace's eyes searched his, wary but hopeful. "Why help us?" He looked at Lily's drawing in his hand. "Because someone reminded me what a hug feels like." That afternoon, Liam worked on the motel's leaky gutters, his hammer's rhythm steadying his nerves. Grace brought him coffee, too sweet but warm. "I used to read The Little Prince to my kids at the library," she said, sitting on a crate. "Made me feel like I mattered. Now I'm invisible, except to Lily." "You're not invisible," Liam said, meeting her gaze. "Not to me." She smiled, faint but real. As he worked, Lily sat nearby, drawing waves and stars. "Mr. Fixer," she said, "if you fix Mama's smile, will you stay?" Liam's hammer stilled. He saw Ellie in her eyes, felt Anna in the sea's breeze. "I'll try," he said, voice low. The motel's neon buzzed. The fish market's shouts carried on the wind, and something stirred in Liam. A spark, fragile but alive, whispering that maybe, just maybe, he could stop running. Liam's hammer fell silent. Lily's question, "Will you stay?" hanging in the air like the faint cry of a gull over the bay. The motel's neon flickered, casting jagged shadows across the cracked pavement where he stood, toolbox at his feet. Grace's coffee, too sweet, warmed his hands, her words about feeling invisible still echoing. He looked at Lily, her crayon poised over a new drawing, and saw Ellie's shadow in her careful strokes. The sea's restless pulse thrummed in his chest, urging him to speak, but the weight of 3 years, running from flames, from guilt, kept him quiet. Grace stood, brushing dust from her jeans. "You don't have to fix everything, Liam," she said, her voice soft but edged with something sharp, like she was testing him. "We've gotten by." "I know," he replied, meeting her gaze, "but I want to try." He nodded toward the motel's sagging gutters. "Let me finish these. Maybe Tate'll cut you some slack." She hesitated, then nodded. "Okay, but don't make promises you can't keep." Her eyes, tired but fierce, held a challenge. Liam understood. She'd been burned before, not by fire but by abandonment. He picked up his hammer, the rhythm grounding him as he worked under the fading light. Lily hummed nearby, her stuffed dog now draped in the knit blanket, a tiny guardian watching over her art. By dusk, the gutters were secure, water no longer dripping onto the motel's warped porch. Liam wiped sweat from his brow, his flannel damp despite the evening chill. Grace emerged from room 12, holding a chipped mug of tea. "You're fast," she said, leaning against the doorframe. "Tate might notice." "He'd better," Liam said, half smiling. "I'll talk to him tomorrow. Trade some repairs for your rent." Grace's lips parted, but before she could speak, Lily ran up, thrusting a new drawing into Liam's hands. "Look, Mr. Fixer, it's us at the beach." 3 stick figures stood on wavy lines, a kite soaring above. The smallest figure, Lily, held a star. That's you, she said, pointing. You're shiny. Liam's throat tightened, the paper trembling in his calloused fingers. Shiny, huh? He managed, seeing Ellie in every line. He tucked the drawing beside the first one in his jacket, next to his heart. Thanks, kid. Grace watched, her expression unreadable. She doesn't warm up to people like that, she said quietly. Not since her dad left. He promised her the world, then walked away when she was one. I thought I was enough, but... She trailed off, staring at the ground. You are, Liam said, his voice firm. She's got your strength. I see it. Grace's eyes flicked up, a flicker of surprise softening her guard. You don't know us. I'm starting to, he said, and meant it. The motel's neon buzzed, a counterpoint to the distant crash of waves. For the first time in years, Liam felt anchored, not adrift. The next morning, he found Tate in the motel office, a cramped room smelling of stale coffee and motor oil. The man's greasy jacket strained over his shoulders as he counted cash. What's it now? Tate grunted, barely looking up. Your gutters are fixed, Liam said, leaning on the counter. I'll do more. Porch boards, window frames, if you give Grace a break on rent. A month, maybe 2. Tate squinted, sizing him up. You her boyfriend or something? Just someone who fixes things, Liam said, his tone steady but cold. She's got a kid. They need that room. Tate snorted. Fine. 1 month's rent for the gutters and porch. But I ain't a charity. He waved Liam off, returning to his cash. Liam stepped outside, the morning mist curling around him. He found Grace by the cart, sorting cans while Lily played nearby, tossing pebbles into a puddle. Tate's giving you a month, he said. I'll fix the porch next. Grace's shoulders relaxed, but her eyes narrowed. Why are you doing this, Liam? You don't owe us. He looked at Lily, her laughter cutting through the fog. Your kid reminded me of someone, he said, his voice low. Someone I couldn't save. Grace's expression softened, but before she could respond, a shout came from the street. A wiry man in a faded jacket, reeking of cheap whiskey, approached. Grace, you dodging me? He slurred, his eyes bloodshot. You owe me for those cans last week. I paid you, Carl, Grace said, stepping in front of Lily. Check your ledger. Carl sneered. You're a liar, always were. He grabbed the cart, rattling it. Lily flinched, clutching her dog. Liam stepped forward, his voice low. Dangerous. Back off. Carl laughed, but his eyes flickered with uncertainty. Who's this? Your new hero. He shoved the cart and stumbled off, muttering. Grace's hands shook as she steadied the cart. He's a scavenger, picks fights over cans. I can handle him. You shouldn't have to, Liam said, his fists unclenching. He knelt by Lily. You okay? She nodded, but her eyes were wide. Will you fix the bad man, Mr. Fixer? Liam's heart twisted. Some things take time, he said, brushing her hair back. He stood, meeting Grace's gaze. I'll stick around today. Make sure he doesn't come back. Grace nodded, her guard still up but cracking. Thanks, she said, barely a whisper. They spent the afternoon together, Liam patching the motel's porch, while Grace sorted cans and Lily drew by his side. As the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of coral, Grace spoke. I read The Little Prince to Lily last night. She loves the part about taming the fox. Says it's like making friends. Liam paused, hammer in hand. Ellie loved that book. I used to read it to her. His voice cracked, but he didn't look away. You're taming me, you know. Both of you. Grace's smile was small, real. Maybe we're taming each other. As Lily's crayon scratched out another star, Liam felt the tide of his grief shift. Not gone, but softer, like waves lapping instead of crashing. The motel's neon glowed, the sea sang, and he wondered if this place, this broken, beautiful moment, could be where he finally stopped running. The coral sky had faded to a bruised purple, the motel's neon humming as Liam drove his last nail into the porch boards. Grace's words, maybe we're taming each other, lingered like the salt in the air, stirring something in him he hadn't felt since Ellie's laughter filled his old workshop. Lily's latest drawing, 3 stick figures under a starry sky, rested in his jacket, a fragile tether to this moment. He glanced at her, still sketching by the porch, her stuffed dog swaddled in the blanket he'd given her. Grace stood nearby, sorting cans, her shoulders tense from Carl's earlier threat. Liam wiped his hands on his flannel, the weight of his promise to help heavier than his toolbox. "I'll keep an eye out for that guy," he said, nodding toward the street where Carl had vanished. "He won't bother you again." Grace's eyes flicked up, guarded but softening. "You can't fix every bully, Liam. Carl's trouble, but he's not new. I've dealt with worse." "You shouldn't have to," he said, his voice low, edged with a protectiveness that surprised him. He saw Anna and Grace's tired resilience, Ellie and Lily's quiet hope. The thought tightened his chest, but he pushed it down, focusing on the task. "I'll talk to Tate again tomorrow. Get you more time." Grace nodded, but her fingers gripped the cart's handle. "Tate's not the problem. It's keeping Lily safe. She's all I've got." Her voice cracked, betraying the fear beneath her strength. Lily looked up, crayon pausing. "Mama's strong like the lighthouse," she said, pointing toward the distant glow of Yakina Head. "Right, Mr. Fixer?" Liam smiled, the knot in his chest loosening. "Right, kid. Strongest lighthouse I know." He knelt, studying her drawing. A boat now joined the stick figures. "That's new." "For you," Lily said, handing it over. "So you don't sail away." His fingers trembled as he took it, Ellie's voice whispering in his mind, "Daddy, don't go to work yet." He tucked the drawing with the others, his heart a tangled net of grief and hope. "I'm not sailing anywhere," he said, meeting Grace's gaze. She held his look, a silent question in her eyes. The next morning, Liam woke in his van, parked by the bay where fishing boats bobbed under dawn's gray veil. The air carried the sharp tang of seaweed and diesel, the docks alive with shouts of fishermen hauling nets. He drove to the motel, finding Grace outside, pushing the cart toward the fish market. Lily skipped beside her, humming, her stuffed dog bouncing in her arms. "Early start?" Liam called, stepping out of his van. "Market's best at dawn," Grace said, brushing hair from her face. "Cans sell better when the boats come in." Her voice was steady, but her eyes darted to the street, wary of Carl. "Let me help," Liam said, grabbing a bag from the cart. They walked together, Lily weaving between them, her chatter a bright thread against the morning's chill. At the market, vendors haggling over crab and cod eyed Grace with a mix of pity and respect. A burly fisherman, his beard flecked with salt, tossed Lily an apple. "For the kid," he grunted, nodding at Grace. "You're doing all right, Miller." Grace's smile was tight. "Thanks, Joe." She pocketed the coins from her cans, barely enough for a day's rent. As they headed back, Carl appeared, leaning against a lamppost, his grin sharp. "Nice haul, Grace. Share some, or we got problems." His eyes flicked to Liam, challenging. Liam stepped forward, his voice cold. "She paid you. Walk away." Carl laughed, stepping closer. "Big hero, huh? This ain't your fight." He shoved Liam's shoulder, but Liam didn't budge, his fist clenching. Grace grabbed Lily, pulling her back. "Carl, stop it," she snapped. "You're scaring her." Lily's eyes widened, clutching her dog. "Mr. Fixer, don't let him take Mama's cart." Something snapped in Liam. He grabbed Carl's jacket, pulling him close. "You touch them, you deal with me." His voice was a low growl, the fire of that Seattle night burning in his chest. Carl faltered, wrenching free, and stumbled off, muttering curses. Grace's breath shook. "You didn't have to do that." "I did," Liam said, his hands still trembling. He knelt by Lily. "No one's taking your mama's card, okay?" She nodded, slipping her hand into his. "You're our lighthouse, too." The words hit like a wave, washing over the guilt he'd carried for years. He stood, meeting Grace's gaze. "I'm not going anywhere," he said, and meant it. Back at the motel, Liam worked on the porch, replacing rotted boards. Grace brought him a sandwich from the market, her fingers brushing his as she handed it over. "You keep showing up," she said, sitting on the steps. "Why?" Liam paused, the bread warm in his hands. "You remind me of what I lost, but also what I might find." He looked at Lily, playing nearby, her drawings scattered in the dirt. "She's like Ellie, her hugs, her drawings. They pull me back." Grace's eyes softened, but her voice held an edge. "I thought I was enough for Lily after her dad left, but sometimes I feel like I'm failing her." "You're not," Liam said, his voice firm. "You're her whole world. I see it. She looked away, blinking hard. I used to read The Little Prince at the library. The fox says you're responsible for what you tame. I'm trying, Liam. For her. He nodded, the book's words echoing his own heart. I'm trying too. That evening, as the tide rolled in, Liam found a small wooden whale in his toolbox, carved for Ellie but never given. He handed it to Lily. For you, he said, to keep your boat safe. Her eyes lit up. It's a star whale. She hugged him, her warmth a balm against the cold. Grace watched, her guard cracking further. But as Liam turned to leave, Tate's voice barked from the office. Grace, 1 week, or you're out. Repairs or no repairs? Liam's jaw tightened. The sea roared, and in a new resolve settled in his bones. He wasn't just fixing boards anymore. He was building something worth fighting for. Tate's ultimatum, 1 week or eviction, echoed in Liam's ears as he stood outside the Anchor Motel. The sea's roar, a distant drumbeat against the night's chill. The neon sign buzzed, casting a sickly glow over the porch he'd just repaired, its boards now sturdy underfoot. Lily's star whale, clutched in her small hands as she slept inside, seemed to pulse with the hope she'd given him. Grace's words about taming, her fear of failing Lily, burned in his chest, mingling with the ache of Ellie's memory. He wasn't just fixing things anymore. He was fighting for something, someone, worth staying for. Dawn broke with a gray mist, the air thick with the briny scent of low tide. Liam found Grace outside room 12, her cart loaded with cans, her blonde hair catching the first light. Lily skipped beside her, humming, the knit blanket draped over her shoulders like a cape. Morning, Mr. Fixer, she called, waving her whale. Gonna save Mama's cart today? Liam smiled, the warmth of her voice cutting through the fog. Always, kid. He turned to Grace. Heading to the market? She nodded, her eyes shadowed. Need every penny before Tate's deadline. Carl's been sniffing around too. He's trouble when he's desperate. I'll come with you, Liam said, grabbing his jacket. Keep him at bay. Grace didn't protest, her silence a fragile trust. They walked toward the docks where fishermen hauled nets under the cry of gulls. The market buzzed with vendors shouting prices for cod and crab, their voices a rhythmic chant. Lily darted ahead, her blanket fluttering, drawing smiles from weathered faces. At the market, Grace traded cans for coins, her hands steady but her jaw tight. A woman with a salt-streaked apron, Mary, who ran a fish stall, slipped Lily a candy. You're a bright spot, little one, she said, then glanced at Grace. Heard about Tate. You okay? Barely, Grace admitted, pocketing coins, trying to keep the roof over her head. Mary nodded, her eyes flicking to Liam. You're new. Sticking around? For now, Liam said, his gaze on Lily, who was drawing waves in the dirt with a stick. He felt Grace's eyes on him, questioning, but he didn't meet them. Not yet. As they left the market, Carl appeared, his jacket reeking of whiskey, his grin sharp as a blade. Grace, you shorting me again? He slurred, stepping too close to the cart. Those cans are half mine. You got your cut, Grace snapped, pulling Lily behind her. Leave us alone. Liam stepped between them, his voice low. You heard her. Walk. Carl's eyes narrowed, but he backed off, muttering, You'll regret this, hero. His words hung heavy, a promise of trouble. Liam's fists clenched, the fire of that Seattle night flaring in his veins. But he let Carl go, for Lily's sake. Back at the motel, Liam worked on the window frames, his hammer's rhythm a counterpoint to the sea's pulse. Grace sat nearby, counting coins, her face etched with worry. It's not enough, she said, barely audible. Even with the cans, I'm short for Tate. I'll fix more, Liam said, pausing. Doors, plumbing, whatever he wants. Buy you time. Grace looked at him, her guard cracking. Why, Liam? You could leave. You don't owe us. He set the hammer down, his eyes on the horizon where the lighthouse beam swept. Your kid called me a lighthouse. I haven't been that for anyone since... He stopped, Ellie's laughter echoing in his mind. Since I lost them. You and Lily. You're giving me a reason to try again. Grace's hand brushed his arm, a fleeting touch. I used to read The Little Prince to my kids at the library. The fox says you're responsible for what you tame. I'm scared, Liam. Scared I'm not enough for her. You are, he said, his voice fierce. She's got your heart. That's everything. Lily ran up, holding a new drawing, a lighthouse with 3 figures at its base. For you, Mr. Fixer, she said, so you don't get lost. Liam took it, his throat tight. I won't, kid. He tucked it with the others, each one a stitch in the wound he'd carried for years. That afternoon, trouble came faster than expected. Tate stormed out of the office, his face red. Grace, I got a buyer sniffing around. Wants the motel. You're out in 3 days unless you pay up. Grace paled, gripping Lily's hand. 3 days? You said a week. Business is business, Tate snapped, then eyed Liam. Your repairs don't change math. Liam's jaw tightened. What's the number? $500, Tate said. Cash by Wednesday. Grace's voice shook. I can't. I'll handle it, Liam cut in, his mind racing. He had some savings tucked away from selling his shop, but it meant staying, committing. The thought scared him more than Carl's threats. Grace stared. Liam, no, that's too much. It's not, he said, his voice steady but his heart pounding. I'm not letting you lose this. That evening, as the tide rolled in, Liam sat in his van, the drawings spread across the dashboard. Ellie's face stared back from the photo, but Lily's lighthouse glowed beside it. He drove to the docks, finding Joe, the fisherman from the market. Know anyone needing carpentry? Quick cash? Joe rubbed his beard. My brother's boat shop needs shelves. Pays decent. You in? Liam nodded. I'm in. As he walked back, the sea's rhythm matched his pulse. He wasn't just fixing a motel anymore. He was building a lifeline. But Carl's words echoed, and Tate's deadline loomed. Could he outrun the storm gathering around them? The promise to Joe, work at the boat shop for quick cash, burned in Liam's mind as he left the docks, the sea's restless churn mirroring the storm brewing within him. Tate's 3-day deadline and Carl's lingering threat hung like fog over the motel, where Grace and Lily waited, their fragile world teetering. The lighthouse beam swept the horizon, a silent guide, but Liam felt the pull of his past, Ellie's laughter, Anna's touch, clashing with the hope Lily's drawings had kindled. He gripped the wooden whale in his pocket, its edges worn from his restless fingers, and drove toward the Anchor Motel, determined to keep his word. Morning light spilled over the motel's cracked pavement, the air sharp with salt and the distant clang of boat bells. Grace stood by the cart, counting coins, her face drawn. Lily sat cross-legged, sketching a new picture. 3 figures on a boat, stars above. Mr. Fixer, she called, spotting Liam. Look, we're sailing. Liam knelt, his heart catching at the drawing's resemblance to one Ellie made years ago. Beautiful, kid, he said, tucking it with the others in his jacket. You're keeping me on course. Grace looked up, her eyes weary. Any luck with Tate? Working on it, Liam said, his voice steady despite the weight of $500. Got a job at a boat shop. Should cover the rent. He didn't mention his dwindling savings or the fear that dipping into them meant tying himself to Newport, to them. Grace's shoulders eased, but her voice held an edge. You're doing too much, Liam. We're not your burden. You're not, he said, meeting her gaze. You're my reason. The words slipped out, raw and true, startling them both. Grace's eyes softened, but she turned away, hiding a flicker of vulnerability. Before he could say more, a truck roared into the lot. Carl stepped out, his grin sharp, a crowbar dangling from one hand. Grace, you and your hero owe me, he slurred, eyeing the cart. Those cans are mine. Lily shrank behind Grace, clutching her wail. Liam stepped forward, his voice low. Get out, Carl, now. Carl laughed, tapping the crowbar against his palm. Big talk. Let's see you back it up. He swung at the cart, knocking cans to the ground. Lily gasped, dropping her wail. Liam lunged, grabbing Carl's arm, twisting it until the crowbar clattered to the pavement. Touch them again, and you're done, he growled, the fire of that Seattle night blazing in his chest. Carl stumbled back, cursing, and sped off in his truck, leaving a cloud of dust. Grace knelt, gathering cans, her hands shaking. He'll come back, she whispered. He always does. Not this time, Liam said, picking up the whale and handing it to Lily. You okay, kid? She nodded, her eyes wide. You scared the bad man, Mr. Fixer. He forced a smile, but his heart raced. He'd faced down Carl, but Tate's deadline loomed larger, and the boat shop job wasn't guaranteed. Stay close today, he told Grace. I'll be back after work. The boat shop, a weathered shed near the docks, smelled of sawdust and varnish. Joe's brother, Tom, a grizzled man with hands like Liam's, showed him the job, building shelves for gear storage. Pays $300 if you finish by tomorrow, Tom said. Good work. You get more. Liam nodded, his hammer falling in a familiar rhythm. Each swing was for Grace, for Lily, for the home they might lose. But as sawdust swirled, memories of Ellie crept in, her giggles as he carved that whale, Anna's voice reading The Little Prince by her bedside. You're responsible for what you tame, Anna had said, kissing his forehead. He paused, the hammer heavy, wondering if he could tame this new life without breaking. By dusk, the shelves were half done, his hands raw. Tom grunted approval. You're fast. Come back tomorrow. Liam pocketed a partial payment, $150, and drove to the motel, the sea's pulse steadying him. Grace and Lily waited outside, Lily clutching a new drawing, a lighthouse with a boat nearby. For you, she said, handing it over. So you find us? Liam's throat tightened. Always will, he said, ruffling her hair. He turned to Grace. Got half the money. I'll finish tomorrow. Grace's eyes searched his, a mix of gratitude and fear. Tate came by, said the buyer's serious. If we don't pay, he'll sell. Liam's jaw clenched. He won't. I'll make it work. He didn't say how close he was to emptying his savings, or how Carl's threat gnawed at him. That night in his van, Liam spread Lily's drawings across the dashboard, their stars and boats glowing under the lantern. Ellie's photo stared back, her smile a quiet ache. He traced the lighthouse, hearing Grace's voice. I'm scared I'm not enough. He wasn't enough for Ellie, for Anna, but maybe he could be for them. As he drifted to sleep, a crash jolted him awake. Outside, the motel lot was dark, but the cart lay overturned, cans scattered. A note was pinned to it, scrawled in jagged ink. You can't hide, hero. Carl. Liam's blood ran cold, the sea's roar now a warning. Time was running out. For the rent, for safety, for the fragile anchor he'd found in Grace and Lily. The overturned cart and Carl's scrawled threat. You can't hide, hero, burned in Liam's mind as he stood in the motel lot, the night's chill seeping through his flannel. The sea's roar was a restless warning, its rhythm clashing with the neon's hum. Lily's lighthouse drawing, tucked in his jacket with the wooden whale, felt like a talisman against the storm gathering around Grace and Lily. Tate's deadline, $500 by Wednesday, loomed, and Carl's vandalism was a promise of worse to come. Liam's resolve hardened. He wasn't just saving a motel room anymore. He was guarding a fragile light that had begun to pierce his darkness. Dawn broke, the sky a bruised gray, the air thick with the tang of low tide and diesel from nearby boats. Liam helped Grace right the cart, salvaging scattered cans while Lily watched, her stuffed dog clutched tight. Is the bad man gone, Mr. Fixer? She asked, her voice small. For now, Liam said, kneeling to meet her eyes. I'll keep you safe. He glanced at Grace, her face pale but resolute as she stacked cans. Got a $150 from the boat shop, he said. I'll finish today. Get the rest. Grace's hands paused, her eyes searching his. You're risking too much, Liam. This isn't your fight. It is, he said, his voice low but firm. You and Lily, you're my lighthouse. The words echoed Lily's drawing, and Grace's lips parted, a flicker of warmth breaking through her fear. They walked to the boat shop, the docks alive with fishermen hauling nets, their shouts mingling with gull cries. Tom, the shop owner, greeted Liam with a nod. Shelves look good. Finish by noon. You get $350 total. Liam gripped his hammer, each swing a step towards saving Grace's home. Sawdust swirled, stirring memories of Ellie watching him carve, her giggles filling his old workshop. You're responsible for what you tame, Anna's voice whispered, reading The Little Prince. He worked faster, the deadline a pulse in his veins. By midday, the shelves were done, sturdy and polished. Tom handed over the cash, clapping Liam's shoulder. You're a natural. Got more work if you want it. Liam pocketed the $350, his savings now a thin thread, but enough with yesterday's payment to cover Tate's demand. He drove back, the sea's rhythm urging him on. At the motel, Grace was sorting cans, Lily coloring nearby. Got the money, Liam said, holding up the cash. I'll pay Tate now. Grace stood, her eyes wide. Liam, that's everything you have, isn't it? Not everything, he said, glancing at Lily. I've got you two. Before Grace could respond, a shout cut through the air. Carl's truck screeched into the lot, his crowbar gleaming. You think you're clever, hero? He yelled, slamming the cart. Cans flew and Lily screamed, dropping her wail. Liam lunged, shoving Carl against the truck. Enough, he roared, his voice raw with the fire of that Seattle night. Carl swung the crowbar, grazing Liam's arm, but Liam wrestled it free, pinning him down. Stay away, or you're done. Carl scrambled up, spitting. This ain't over. He sped off, leaving the cart battered but intact. Grace knelt by Lily, who sobbed into her stuffed dog. It's okay, baby, she whispered, but her hands shook. Liam picked up the whale, handing it to Lily. Your star whale's tough, he said, forcing a smile. Like you. Lily sniffled, hugging him. You're tougher, Mr. Fixer. Liam's arm stung, blood seeping through his sleeve, but he ignored it, turning to Grace. I'm paying Tate now. This ends today. Inside the office, Tate counted the cash, his eyes narrow. You're serious about these two, he grunted. Fine. They stay. But the buyer's still circling. Don't expect miracles. Liam nodded, his relief tempered by Carl's threat. He stepped outside, finding Grace and Lily by the cart. You're safe for now, he said. Tate's off your back. Grace's eyes glistened, but her voice was steady. You gave up everything for us. Not everything, Liam said, his hand brushing hers. I'm finding something new. That evening, they sat on the motel steps, the tide's rhythm softer now. Lily drew, her crayon scratching out a new picture, a lighthouse with a whale swimming nearby. For you, she said, handing it to Liam. So you always come back. He took it, his throat tight. I will, kid. The drawing joined the others, each one a stitch in his healing heart. Grace leaned closer, her voice soft. I used to think I had to do this alone. After Lily's dad left, I stopped trusting. But you're changing that. Liam looked at her, the lighthouse beam sweeping in the distance. You're changing me too. I haven't felt this alive since them. As night fell, a low rumble broke the quiet. Headlights flashed in the lot, and Carl's truck idled, his silhouette dark behind the wheel. He didn't approach, but his presence was a blade in the dark. Liam stood, his heart pounding. The sea roared, and he knew. Carl wasn't done, and the fight for Grace and Lily was far from over. Carl's idling truck, a shadow in the motel lot, sent a chill through Liam as he stood shielding Grace and Lily. The sea's roar, a fierce underscore to the night's tension. The lighthouse beam swept the horizon, its light a faint promise against the darkness of Carl's threat and the buyer circling the motel. Lily's whale drawing, tucked in Liam's jacket, felt like a lifeline, its stars anchoring him to her and Grace. He'd paid Tate's rent, but Carl's menace and the buyer's shadow meant their safety was still at stake. Liam's heart pounded, not with fear, but with a resolve forged by Lily's hugs and Grace's trust. A resolve to build something lasting. Morning broke, the air heavy with mist and the tang of fish from the docks. Liam found Grace outside room 12, repairing the cart's wheel, her hands steady but her eyes haunted. Lily sat nearby, clutching her stuffed dog, her whale nestled beside her. Mr. Fixer, is the bad man gone? She asked, her voice trembling. He will be, Liam said, kneeling. I promise. He glanced at Grace. I'm heading to the docks. Tom's got more work. I'll make sure Tate's buyer backs off. Grace's fingers paused on the cart. You've done enough, Liam. You don't have to fight our battles. I want to, he said, his voice raw. You're my shore now. The words, heavy with truth, hung between them, and Grace's eyes softened, a crack in her guarded heart. At the boat shop, Tom handed Liam a new job, repairing a dockside bench damaged in a recent storm. Pays $200, he said, tossing him a hammer. You're good, Hayes. Stay around. We could use you. Liam worked through the morning, the rhythm of nails and wood grounding him. Each swing was for Lily's smile, Grace's trust, the home they might lose. Memories of Ellie crept in, her hands on his tools, Anna's voice reading, The Little Prince. You become responsible forever for what you have tamed. He was tamed now, by a 6-year-old's hug and a mother's quiet strength. By noon, Liam pocketed the cash and headed to the motel, the sea's pulse urging him on. Grace and Lily were outside, Lily drawing a new picture, a lighthouse with 3 figures holding hands. For us, she said, handing it to Liam. So we stay together. His throat tightened, Ellie's laughter echoing in Lily's voice. We will, kid, he said, tucking the drawing with the others. He turned to Grace. I've got enough to keep Tate happy for another month, but we need to deal with Carl. Grace nodded, her jaw tight. He's at the docks every night drinking. He won't stop. Then I'll stop him, Liam said, his voice steady, but his arm still aching from Carl's crowbar. He drove to the docks as dusk fell, the air thick with diesel and salt. Carl slouched by a pier, bottle in hand, his eyes glinting when he saw Liam. Hero's back, he slurred, stepping closer. You can't save them. Liam stood his ground, the fire of that Seattle night burning in his chest. You're done here, Carl. Leave them alone, or I go to the cops. Carl laughed, but his hands shook. You think you scare me? He lunged, fist raised, but Liam caught his arm, twisting it until Carl yelped. Fishermen nearby turned, their shouts drawing a crowd. Joe, the fisherman, stepped in. Enough, Carl. You're out of line. Carl glared but backed off, muttering as he vanished into the dusk. Joe clapped Liam's shoulder. You've got friends here, Hayes. We look out for Grace and Lily. Liam nodded, his heart lighter. He drove back, finding Grace and Lily on the motel steps, the tide's rhythm softer now. Carl's gone, he said. The docks won't let him near you. Grace's eyes glistened. You're changing everything, Liam. I thought I had to do this alone. You don't, he said, his hand brushing hers. Not anymore. That evening, Tate emerged from the office, his face less sour. Buyers backing off, he grunted. Your repairs helped. They stay for now. Grace exhaled, pulling Lily close. Lily looked up, her wail in hand. Mr. Fixer, are you our family now? Liam froze, Ellie's face flashing before him. He glanced at Grace, her eyes warm, unguarded. If your mama says yes, he said, his voice thick. Yes, Grace whispered, her hand finding his. Lily squealed, throwing her arms around them both. The lighthouse beam swept overhead, and Liam felt the tide of his grief shift. Not gone, but shared, softened by their warmth. Weeks later, spring painted Newport in wildflower hues, the fish market bustling with festival chatter. Liam rented a small house near the docks, its porch overlooking the sea. He carved a new whale for Lily, this one with a star etched on its side. Grace, back at the library, read The Little Prince to kids, her smile brighter. They flew a kite on the beach, its patches sewn from Grace's old dresses, soaring under a boundless sky. As Lily ran ahead laughing, Grace took Liam's hand. You fixed more than a cart, she said. You fixed us. You fixed me, Liam said, his voice steady. The drawings, taped in their new home, glowed beside Ellie's photo, a constellation of old and new stars. The sea sang, and they stood together, a family tamed by a hug, anchored by love. As the Newport tide whispers its endless song, Liam, Grace, and Lily's journey reminds us that a single hug can anchor broken hearts. Their story, stitched with stars and whales, lingers like the sea's soft hum. What did their light stir in you? Share your thoughts below. Tell us how their bond touched your soul. Your words keep this story alive, like a kite soaring on a coastal breeze. Thank you for walking this shore with us, for feeling their waves of hope. Subscribe for more tales that mend and uplift, and join us again under the lighthouse's glow. Until then, hold tight to those who tame your heart.